الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, I wanted to take this opportunity today to talk to you about a very powerful conversation that takes place in the Quran. A very, very powerful conversation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us in the Quran so that you and I, we can take heed from this. That you and I, we can take lessons from this so that you and I, we can implement the messages that we receive from this conversation. And this conversation, it happens in Surah Al-Muddathir. And this conversation, it takes place between the inhabitants of Jannah and the inhabitants of Jahannam. So the people of Jannah are talking to the people of Jahannam. So let you and I give an attentive ear so that you and I, we can take lessons from this very powerful conversation. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم كل نفس بما كسبت رهينة. That each and every person, they're going to be pledged to their deeds. They're going to be responsible for their deeds. They're going to be bound for their deeds. إِلَّا أَصْحَابَ الْيَمِينَ. Except for the people of the right. Where are the people? Who are the people of the right? The people of the right are those who are the pious believers, who are the believers who worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who follow the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala day in and day out. Where are they going to be? They're going to be in Jannah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فِي جَنَّاتٍ يَتَسَاءَلُونَ. So now, these pious believers, they are in Jannah, they are in a lofty station, they are comfortable, they are happy, but they are asking each other. They're asking each other. What are they asking each other? They're going to be asking each other, عَنِ الْمُجْرِمِينَ. They're going to be asking each other about the criminals. What happened with those people who were the criminals on earth? Those who transgressed the bounds of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where are they? Whatever happened to them? So the people of Jannah, they are wondering about these criminals on earth. And what is this conversation? So now a conversation, just to set the stage, this conversation is now going to take place, and the people of Jannah are going to ask the people of Jahannam. What are they going to ask them? مَا سَلَكَكُمْ فِي سَقَرٍ. What led you to Saqar? What led you to Jahannam? What is Saqar? Saqar is another name for Jahannam. What is it that led you to this station that you are now in Jahannam? And the people in Jahannam, they are in extreme regrets. And they are going to count the reasons of why they can trace back why they have ended up in such a place. Why they have ended in As-Saqar. As-Saqar, yani scorching fire, blazing fire, scorching fire. And so the people of Jahannam now, they look back at their lives and they're going to talk back to the people of Jannah. And they're going to say, قَالُوا لَمْ نَكُ مِنَ الْمُصَلِّينَ. So what's the number one thing that they can trace back to being in Jahannam? They're going to say, we were not of those who prayed. We were not of the people who prayed. And the language here is very strong, and it is as if to suggest we didn't want to have anything to do with those people. We didn't want anything to do with the people who prayed. We didn't care for prayer. We thought it was a joke. We thought it was a joke. And so this is the number one reason the people in Jahannam, they are going to recount of why they have landed in Jahannam, is because they were not observant of the prayer. They were not those people who prayed. And look at the status of the prayer. Brothers and sisters, the status of prayer is so heavy. All of the obligations in Islam, they came down through Jibreel alayhi salam to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. All of the obligations except one, and that obligation was the prayer. And to legislate this obligation, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he was brought up to receive this legislation, this obligation of the prayer. And look at how you and I, we belittle our prayer. Look at how you and I, we belittle our prayer. Some people, they say, sometimes, I just go for Jummah and this is enough. This is okay. Right? And other people, they don't even have time for Jummah. They say, okay, maybe I go once a year. Some people, they just go for Eid. So we have to ask ourselves, who are we following? Are we following Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, who used to pray 5 times, who used to be observant of the prayer? He used to pray more than 5 times a day. He used to pray a number of nawafil. Look at ourselves. Are we following Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, or are we following our own desires? Are we following the example that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent us, or are we following that which is from our desires? And unfortunately, the sad reality is that the majority of the ummah, they do not observe the 5 daily prayers. This is very sad, but it's a reality, and this is something that you and I, we have to acknowledge and we have to work towards. That we have to place a priority towards our prayer. Why? Because the people in Jahannam, these people in Jahannam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us an account of what's conversation that's going to take place of the people in Jahannam. And the first reason they say is قَالُوا لَمْ نَكُ مِنَ الْمُصَلِّينَ, that we were not of those who prayed. This is reason number one. Then what do they say? وَلَمْ نَكُ نُطْعِمُ الْمِسْكِينَ, we were not of those who fed the poor. We were not of those who helped those who could not help themselves. And so, when we accumulate some wealth, we accumulate some money, we might have this arrogant attitude that comes about, and we might look at the poor and we say, why are these people like this? Why can't they uplift their status? Why can't they just get a job? And what we fail to see is what the socio-economic conditions of these people they might be. Perhaps they're not healthy enough to work. Perhaps, we don't look at their health situation, we don't look at their family situation, we don't look at their socio-economic situation, their geopolitical situation. All we think about is, from an arrogant, lofty position, is why can't these people just help themselves? Why can't they just uplift? Why can't this person just get a job? And so, there can be a huge number of factors why somebody lands in poverty. Why someone lands in poverty. And look at the wording here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word miskin. The word miskin. And the word miskin is someone who has a little bit, he has some in terms of providing for himself, but he cannot meet all of his needs. Compare that to the fuqara, like somebody who is a faqir. Faqir is someone who has nothing at all. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word miskin here, yani these are people who have a little bit, but they don't have enough to cover their needs. They don't have enough to cover the necessities of their families. And so the reason number 2 that the people of Jahannam, they trace back to being in Jahannam for, that is, they never used to feed the poor. They never used to feed the poor people. This is reason number 2. Then, the people of Jahannam, they're going to go on with this conversation. And they're going to say, وَكُنَّا نَخُوضُ مَعَ الْخَائِضِينَ. That we made vain conversation. We engaged with each other in useless talk, in idle chit-chat. Just killing time with idle talk. They didn't use their time wisely. They just went from perhaps one party to the next without caring about what was coming out of their mouths. So now connect this verse to the previous two verses. Connect this verse of idle chit-chat, not using time wisely, to the previous two verses. When you and I, we become the people of salah. When you and I, we become people who are observant of the prayer. Right? The opposite is true. You are using your time beneficially. You are uttering from your mouth those words that are going to benefit you in the hereafter. The dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That which is ultimately going to benefit you benefit you in your hereafter. Your heart, it softens towards the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you'll start looking around yourself. Hey, who can I help around me? Who is it that I can help around me? And the opposite is also true. When you forget about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you forget about the prayer, automatically, if you don't care about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, are you really going to care about His creation? And so you disconnect yourself from the salah, you disconnect yourself from Allah, you disconnect yourself from feeding the poor, from taking care of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you engage in those activities which you should not be engaging in. And so it is a progression. End up wasting time with these things and that. And some other scholars, they also commented upon this ayah as well. Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, he said that this ayah, وَكُنَّا نَخُوضُ مَعَ الْخَائِضِينَ, that it means that we used to speak about that which we had no knowledge of. Qatada, he said that it means every time someone went astray, we would go astray with them. Somebody's going to commit some haram, he's going to some party, he's going to some gathering where the jinn, they gather, and we used to just go with them. We used to just, not thinking twice, right? Then, the people of Jahannam, they're going to say, وَكُنَّا نُكَذِّبُ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ. We denied the day of judgment. We denied the day of judgment. And so, these people, they lived very carefree lives, one party to the next. They didn't care about the prayer, they didn't take care about feeding the poor, and lo and behold, they did not prepare for the meeting that they have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The day that you and I, we have to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and answer for each one of our deeds. Whether we do good, we're going to be compensated for. Whether we do bad, we're going to be compensated for. And so when you and I, we engage in actions, let us consider the consequences of these actions. Let us picture ourselves standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask yourself, am I going to be able to answer for this thing that I'm about to engage in? Then they say, حَتَّى أَتَانَا الْيَقِينَ, until the death came to us. We denied the day of judgment until death came to us. حَتَّى أَتَانَا الْيَقِينَ. Yaqeen, what is yaqeen? Yaqeen is the death. Yaqeen is death. This is something that nor you, nor I, nor anyone can escape, right? You go to the cemeteries, you will find people who are 5 years old, you will find newborns, you will find people who are 12 years old. You will find people who are 30, 40, 50, any age you will find them in the cemetery. We don't know when our next moment is going to come, when we're going to be faced with the angel of death, and we're going to face death. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So dear brothers and sisters, we discuss some of the ayats of the Quran. And it behooves us, it should encourage you and I to come up with some action points in our lives. We need to take account of ourselves before our Creator takes account of us. We need to examine our lives, find out where you are deficient. Number one thing we talked about was the prayer. The prayer, we need to make the prayer, this salah, 5 times a day. Super easy. 2 at Fajr time, 4 at Dhuhr, 4 at Asr, 3 at Maghrib, and 4 at Isha. This is the bare minimum. This is the bare minimum. Yani, if you are not praying 5 times a day, it means you are deficient. It means there is a huge problem in your life. This is something that you need to fix. This is something that we need to fix. If we are not even, someone who prays 5 times a day, it doesn't mean they've reached some status, they're some pious sheikh. It just means they are meeting the bare minimum. And subhanAllah, what we've come down to today, these days, is if somebody is praying 5 times a day, we go seeking a fatwa from them. Right? And this is not the case. So, brothers and sisters, if we are not praying 5 times a day, there is a huge problem in our lives. I repeat, if we are not praying 5 times a day, there is a huge problems in our lives that we need to rectify right away. You cannot let a prayer pass by its time without praying, without standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is something that you and I have been obligated with. This is the second pillar of Islam. And Islam, brothers and sisters, it's very easy. It's very easy. You just make sure that you are taking care of your fara'id. This is what you have to make sure that you are holding on to. If you're not holding on to the fara'id, then this is a problem. You need to take account. You need to examine what are some of the things that you are going to change in your lives. Now those of us who are in the habits of praying 5 times a day, alhamdulillah, how do we live with this verse? Then you and I, those who are already in the habit of praying 5 times a day, you and I, we can improve upon that. We can improve upon our salah by enjoining ourselves by nawafil salah. Some of the sunnah muakkada salawats that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam he used to engage in. And by the way, just because you are in the habits of giving your 5 daily prayers, it doesn't mean that there's no deficiency in them, right? One of the ways that deficiencies are going to be made up in the fard actions is through the nafil actions. I give you a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says sallallahu alaihi wasallam that, and this is sahih hadith in Sunan Ibn Majah. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that the first thing that a slave is going to be held accountable for in terms of the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be the fard salah. It's going to be the obligatory prayer. If it is complete, then fine. If If not, it will be said, see if there are any voluntary prayers. So that they can make up for any deficiencies in the obligatory prayers. See if there are any supererogatory prayers or nafil prayers that this person performed, so that they can make up any deficiencies in the obligatory prayers. And the rest of the deeds will follow accordingly. And regarding this issue of praying sunnah, right? This is something that is very encouraged in our religion. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, and again a sahih hadith, this is found in Sahih Muslim. Okay, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, whoever prays 12 voluntary raka'at, 12 sunnah muakkada raka'at, a day and night, a house is going to be built for them in Jannah. Whoever prays 12 raka'at, a house in paradise is going to be built for him. And my teacher, he was of the opinion that each time you pray 12 raka'at, you're going to have a house built for you in Jannah. And then again, there's this scholarly disagreement here as well, whether it's one house or whether it's every time. Either way, doesn't matter. Make sure you are doing your nawafil, your sunnah muakkadas, because they help fill any deficiencies in your prayer. The second thing that you and I, we talked about is feeding the poor. And so you and I, we need to ask ourselves, when was the last time When was the last time we actually went and fed a poor person with our hands? I mean, giving money is one thing. Giving money is good. We give money to the masjid. This is all good. This is all part of sadaqah. But ask yourselves, when was the last time that you were directly involved with feeding a poor person with your hands? And so this is something that you and I, we need to incorporate in our lives. There's many, again, opportunities to do this. In Calgary, we have, initiatives that are happening at the drop-in center, where you go and you serve food to the homeless, you feed food to the homeless people. This weekend, I think March 4th, there is a food and clothing drive that's happening by the Muslim Families Network Society. So again, look in your closet. Maybe you have some food. Maybe you have some clothes that perhaps you no longer wear. Right? Perhaps they no longer fit. They're just sitting in your closet. Right? Make sure that we are taking care of the poor. And again, the poor person, he doesn't have to be Muslim. Right? Our sadaqah can benefit Muslims and non-Muslims. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a Muslim person, right? It might not be your deeds that get you into Jannah. Perhaps the person that you benefit through the food that you feed them, or through some of the clothing that you provide for them, perhaps they will make dua for you, and perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will like this enough to admit you into His mercy and admit you to Jannah. And so after this passage that we have discussed, our action items, those things that you and we need to focus on, should be very clear. Number one, we need to focus upon our salah. Number two, we need to be involved in taking care of those who are poor and those who are needy, those who are less fortunate, those who have less than us. Keeping idle talk and those actions that take us away from Islam to a minimum. And try to engage in those actions that bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And have that intention when you go to sleep, that you're doing it for the sake of Allah. That when you eat, that you're doing it in order to gain strength, in order to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala better. This is one of the ways that you can lift your muba'at into being rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And keep the day in mind. Keep the day in mind when we have to stand in front of Allah. Because you and we have to stand in front of Allah. We have to answer for everything that we have done. And this day is coming. This day, whether we're prepared for it or not, it's coming. So let us prepare for it. Lastly, I want to make dua for those people in Syria who found out this week that they are undergoing severe persecution. I was just reading the news this morning, and the death count is now at 406. And so 150 of them are children. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring ease and afiyah to the people of Syria, to Muslims all around the world, and ease their suffering, and replace this tyrant who is causing these atrocities and shedding blood, shedding Muslim blood, and it's really, wallahi, it's really painful to see. And so one of the things that you and we can do is to, first of all, make sincere dua for them, raise awareness of the issue. So when you see news like this come up, share it with others who perhaps are unaware of this, and donate to those agencies who are on the ground, who are helping them, and we have lots of refugees as well. So support our Syrian brothers and sisters, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He brings ease to them and brings peace and security to them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from the people of salah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from the people of sadaqah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who hold on to their fara'ids. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept the deeds that we put forth for His sake. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from as-sakhar. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from the fire of Jahannam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from those who enter Jannah until al-yaqeen comes to us. رَبَّنَا لَا تُؤَاخِذْنَا إِن نَّسِينَا أَوْ أَخْطَأْنَا رَبَّنَا وَلَا تَحْمِلْ عَلَيْنَا إِصْرًا كَمَا حَمَلْتَهُ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِن قَبْلِنَا رَبَّنَا وَلَا تُحَمِّلْنَا مَا لَا طَاقَةَ لَنَا بِهِ وَاعْفُ عَنَّا وَاغْفِرْ لَنَا وَارْحَمْنَا أَنْتَ مَوْلَانَا فَانصُرْنَا عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. عباد الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروا لي ولا تكفرون وأقيموا الصلاة.